Dive into the forefront of thought exploration, where we unravel the dynamic relation between thought and reality. Explore insights on how the science of imagery shapes individual and collective identities and redefines the benchmarks for a brighter, peaceful future. Welcome to the Science of Imagery.
Welcome to the Science of Imagery podcast. My name is Wyatt. I'm here with my co-host, Edian. This is the first episode of the Science of Imagery podcast where we discuss its power to shape collective thought.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a subject here, everyone, that might not be familiar to you as it was initially for Wyatt and I when we first heard of it many, many years ago. And so here's an invitation. We're inviting all of you to sit back with us and to open up your mind, to just open up to a science. It's not new. Apparently, it's been around forever. And apparently, every science is built out of it and from it. So here's an invitation to sit back with us and to travel along a whole new thought stream that perhaps we hadn't considered before.
I think it's safe to say you're going to find some similarities, and you may start, as you journey with us in this podcast series, notice more and more how you actually use the science of imagery every day in your life. The goal of this podcast is to help us all become more aware of how we can use the science of imagery to shape collective thought. So I think the first question I have, and many people probably have, is, Edian, what is the science of imagery?
So the science of imagery is the study of our ability to shape life with our thought. And this is not just our own personal life and the relationships we have with people around us. Wyatt and I are going to discuss this subject both on a personal, individual level and on a collective level. The science of imagery applies to all of it, everywhere, all the time. So the science of imagery is a really profound invitation to have every man and woman and child look at what kind of reality they are building through their thought, through every single thought that they have. These thoughts accumulate, they're out there in space, they're informing the world, they're shaping the world. And this incredible feedback loop system happens where we receive back whatever we are putting out there on this thought level. And I know that a lot of us have heard a lot about manifestation and visualization. We are inviting people to take a step out of that world. We're going to be using a little bit of a different vocabulary here. We're going to have a different approach here. So we're going to invite those old ways of viewing imagery. We're going to put them aside during this podcast because we're going to explore this from a different angle. Wouldn't you say, Wyatt?
I think so. I definitely agree, Edian. And I think one of the most important additions that we're going to be including is the deep study and a deep dive at our own thought. I think one of the most important additions that we're going to be including that many others aren't is the study of our thought. Its speed, its purity, what we are thinking about, how we think about it, who we think about it with. And this study is what impels the science of imagery to be the science of all sciences. Because when we begin to look deeply at our thought, then we see how much it is a fundamental cornerstone of every aspect of our life. Every single thing that we see, do, are, be, live, love comes first from that thought. And we're going to be journeying with that together. And this podcast is the creation of a community that honors first the thought and then the image that results from the thought and the associated feelings. We're creating a culture of people that are inspired to shape life with a collective image. I think the next question to ask Edian is, what exactly is an image?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm going to take us through a bit of a thought journey to answer a question here. What is an image? So I have a thought, And it comes and it goes. And I let it go. And then I don't really think about it afterwards for a while. Maybe I never think about it again. An image is very different, though. I have a thought that I'm now infusing with feeling and detail. I'm communicating with this thought, with my heart, with my passion. I am building this living, breathing image in this unseen field around me. And I build so much life and energy into this image that it feels like it becomes alive. It might even communicate with me. I might even get information from it. And we can use something really simple and basic like an apple. So I have a thought of an apple, and it's simply a thought, just as it is. Now I have another thought of that same apple, but I'm bringing feeling and detail and life to it. I'm crunching into it. I'm picking up of the scent of this apple. I'm tasting the apple. I'm salivating just thinking about eating this apple. There's a color, a taste, a touch, a sound to it. And my biology is responding to it as if it were actually happening, but it's not. It's not happening in the physical realm, but it is happening on the thought realm. And this very simple thought that I've infused with feeling and detail has now come alive, and my body thinks it's actually there, that it's alive. So, imagine if we did this, we took this concept and we applied it to millions and billions. Let's just sit with that for a moment here. We take this concept of a thought with millions and billions of people that are bringing feeling and detail to it. That's just not impacting a collective genetics and biome and body and biology. That's affecting the planet's biology and biome and the elements and the air and the water and everything, absolutely everything.
This reminds me, Eddie, on what you're saying about my first discoveries, really actualizing what the science of imagery was for myself. And those first experiences I had were found in my dreams, my daydreams and my nighttime dreams. And what I started to realize was that the experiences I had were affecting the circumstances of my life and how I was approaching life. And I know that may sound hard to believe, maybe for some, but it really was true. I was having dreams in the daytime and in the nighttime about the life that I wanted to live, about my hopes, my dreams, my loved ones. And situations started coming about when I started applying intentional thought and feeling towards those experiences I had. In other words, when I started consciously engaging with the images that I was creating in my daytime dream and in my nighttime dream. And it was incredible to watch the circumstances of my life unfold before me and begin to move to make those dreams that I had come about.
So you're touching on a couple important things here, Wyatt. You're touching on something that some people would say is manifestation. Some people might listen to you and say, oh, he's manifesting. He's manifesting.
What's the difference?
This is a good subject to go into. This could be its whole own podcast, but we can touch on it briefly here for sure. So the way we like to see this with this different vocabulary is we like to see it as a co-creation. We like to see it as, for example, Wyatt engaging with, exchanging with, being informed by and informing something that we're going to say is outside of himself, but it's not. It's an extension of himself. Something that he absolutely loves. An image that he had fallen in love with. An image that gave him so much joy and lightness. An image that had him feel so good to be alive. And him feeding into that image, we can see that image also as alive, as we are alluding to. He's not only being informed by it, it is informing him. It's this beautiful loop system where he's co-creating with something that is so bright and beautiful that he loves and loves him back. By seeing this as a co-creation, we're seeing this as a whole and complete loop of communication. Instead of, oh, I'm a manifestor, I manifested that. That's my manifestation. Okay, well, we're taking it to a whole other degree and territory now. We're saying that these images are alive. These thoughts are mighty, mighty powerful and have the capacity to create worlds and to destroy worlds, as we're seeing right now on our planet, right? Seeing an expression of that. I'm hearing co-creation. I love to use that term in this field of work. By seeing ourselves as a co-creator, like I'm seeing you, Wyatt, as a co-creator in that circumstance that you shared with us, there is a sense of duty behind that, of responsibility behind that. If indeed whatever I'm feeding with my thought becomes alive, especially if I infuse it with feeling and detail, it can be a feeling of love and compassion and joy. It can also be feelings of fear and devastation and terror. Whatever I'm feeding into, I'm actually bringing life to these thought expressions in the field. I'm informed by them, they inform me. They impact people, they impact my biology. And if a lot of us are holding on to that image, not holding on, but co creating with that image, then it affects the biology of the world. It's affecting everything. That's an enormous capacity. That's a huge responsibility. Who have we given our God given capacity to utilize the science of imagery? Who have we given this capacity away to?
Yeah, where have we given our image to? We all have feelings, we all have thoughts, we all have dreams of the future, and they combine together to form an image of our life, to form something that is living and unseen, and yet it's there. We notice this when we get around actors who can step up on stage and they can put on a performance that, mind you, is not their own life. Though they may infuse it with feelings from their own life, the performance is not their own life, and yet they can cause people to go to tears, to become enraged in the audience. Those people who watch the image that the actor is portraying, because the actor, with due diligence, with intentional and practical action, is carrying out that image, is walking towards that image. So the question we like to ask ourselves here at the Science of Imagery, and what we like to ponder during this podcast is, what does it look like when women and men, inspired and imbued with an aspiration to create something that is not fleeting, to create something that is not an approximation of happiness? What does it look like when this group of women and men, dedicated and devoted both to each other's image and to their own, stand together and hold it as one another and walk both individually and hand in hand towards all of those images and the image? And we'll be talking about what the image is as well. One really beautiful thing to illustrate imagery that we like to do here at the Science of Imagery podcast is, as we're speaking here and we have our headphones in and we're listening, we know that the ears that we're listening to this podcast with are a representation of all of the ears of the listeners. We're right here speaking as if everyone here is present with us, as if we're simply in a big room and we're speaking to each one of you directly. And this is the same thing that a good actor does. This is the same thing that a good teacher does. This is the same thing that a good book does. This is the same thing that a good movie does. This is the same thing that a good politician does. This is the same thing that a good doctor does. And this is the same thing that any guru or any wise man does, is they portray an image. And the degree to which we resonate with that image is also an indicator of the truth of that image for us and how we align with that. We are going to begin unraveling in this podcast how far, wide, and vast imagery is everywhere in our lives, everywhere. It is the foundational basis of getting up in the morning to going to bed at night and everything in between and all of it.
Yeah, so I'm going to practice this right now, okay? I'm going to practice with my thought, holding you, Wyatt, myself, and everybody who's listening right now. I'm going to hold all of you to the absolute brightest and lightest image that I could possibly muster in my mind. I'm seeing all of you including myself, well. I'm seeing all of you vibrant. I'm holding this thought that everyone on this podcast is an absolutely phenomenal human being. Immaculate hearts, passionate, brilliant, inspiring, someone I would love to be around. I'm going to hold this thought and I'm going to continue to hold it, and I'm going to feed it with this joy of being around people like you, and with this happiness knowing that I have it within myself too, this energy, this image. And it's a delight to be around people like you. And I'd love to be around people like you more often. I'm going to hold that thought. So I don't know about you, and I know
Yeah.
everybody's different here, but I could feel that buzz in my body. I can feel an expansion around me. I can feel an elevation, and I could feel myself being uplifted. And all I did was put a thought out there. And again, it's not just any thought, it's a thought infused with feeling and detail. I'm breathing into this thought, an image I'm creating of all of us, and I can feel it breathing me back. It's this loop, and it's an exchange system. It's a feedback system where I'm being informed and I'm informing, and it's changing my biology. I could feel it. My shoulders just dropped down. My spine just lifted up a little bit more because I'm in this beautiful thought field with these beautiful people. If I did the opposite, I won't do it right now because I'd love to keep us in an uplifted life. But what if I did the opposite with my thought, everyone? What if I had quite an awful thought of myself, and all of us here? Of course, we're going to feel that. Me just saying the words, I'm starting to feel it in my gut. And I've barely fed the image. I've barely fed the thought. It is absolutely incredible how we have all, and myself included, have taken this for granted. The power, the capacity, the reach, the potency, the influence of our thought, and not just any thought. It's these images we're creating. They're alive, they're real, and they're impacting everybody, everywhere.
I'm going to run with your thought, Edian. What a beautiful journey that you've taken us on. And one of the goals of this podcast is to also empower you, the listener, and all of us to further develop these brilliant images of our life. So I just want to highlight something that Edian did. Edian didn't just say, oh yeah, bright and beautiful. She didn't just say bright and beautiful. So what Edian first had to do was her thought had to proceed extremely quickly to hold within her mind this clear vision, and for her heart to beat in time with that vision and infuse it with its essence as well, with the feeling of being in that image. And from that place, Edian was able to say the words that then we heard. And that is why her words went farther than if I just utter to you right now, you're feeling uplifted, you're feeling alive, you're feeling brilliant, you're feeling, I am not in my heart and in my mind holding that image. And so that is why the speed of thought is something we're going to be talking about during this podcast, because it is absolutely integral to the science of imagery. One's speed of thought is a direct relation to one's ability to create living images that ripple out and affect everything. When we learn to harness the power of our thought, and when we learn to purify our thought, and as the fruit of our efforts for a pure thought to unfold, we are then able to create living images that affect everyone and everything. And we're all doing this to some degree already. We find in these modern times a lifestyle that intentionally distracts and confuses thought, but it does not put it to a full stop. And the science of imagery isn't asleep in these modern times where we have people who are diseased, where we have families who are lacking in love, where we have children who are uncared for, when we have elders who are uncared for, when we have youth who are being tossed into a cesspool of other people's wishes and ideals for them. The science of imagery is not asleep at all, dear friends. The science of imagery is very alive, and it is the reason that these circumstances are in front of our eyes now. And these circumstances are not impartial to us. They are not impersonal to us. We have the absolute power to be able to change those. And this podcast is a conversation about our power to be able to change it. We hope to be able to inspire those listening, those with willing hearts, and those with similar aspirations to step into their creator-given capacities, to step into their thought, and to infuse it with feeling and to feed an image that is out there, an image where people are vitally well, vibrant, thriving, where children are free to be as they are, where adults and elders alike are cared and respected just as they are, where all the essential elements of life are given in abundance, not restricted to a select few. Have to ask ourselves, who has created the image of our own death before our eyes? And when did we accept this image? Because we all made a choice to accept this image. I made a choice to accept this image. And each day we're presented with these opportunities to give our thought, our choice, our power to something else, because everything outside of us is not outside of our power. In fact, nothing is outside of us even. This is all one big image. We are a part of the image. We are the pure image. And it's the moment of truth, dear friends. It is the moment of truth on this podcast beyond. Many people all across the world are talking about this, but you're not going to hear about this on the news. You're not going to hear about this in the mainstream media. You're not going to hear about it because it is the foundation of the destruction. But we, dear friends, here are counteracting that. We're going to stand boldly in our square, and we're going to invite everyone to hold an image of a pure, vital, living, thriving, breathing, sharing, loving earth. One where we all have everything that we need. We have every opportunity afforded to us to create a space of love to last forever for all families, all of mankind, and for this earth.
I had a mentor back in Montreal when I lived there. This is going back maybe 13 years ago. And he would say something to me from his heart. It was a loving question that he would ask repeatedly, very loving, but it triggered me every time. It even hurt quite a few times, but I knew he was saying it from his heart. And I'm so grateful he asked me this question over and over again. And I'm about to ask you the same question now, everyone. He would say to me, Ariane, how is it working for you?
That is a triggering question.
He would say it, and he would say it from his heart. Like, he genuinely, it wasn't sarcastic. It was not mean, like where it was coming from. It was a very genuine, heartfelt question. Like, Ariane, how's it working? How is that working for you? I am so grateful that he asked me these questions, because I was able to look at things that I was not willing to look at on my own. But because of his invitation, I finally went there. And so now I'm going to do this with all of us. So I'm going to ask us, everyone listening, how is it working for us to be feeding into a collective image that is quite sickly? And I'm going to say dying, a dying collective image of the world. How is it working for us? Not just a collective image, an individual image. How is it working for us individually to be feeding into these very limiting images of ourselves? I think it's safe to say that it is not working for a destiny that is reflecting peace and thriving nature and happy families. We are witnessing quite literally the opposite. And so the science of imagery is a very grand and very beautiful and powerful invitation for us to look at what we have been feeding. What have I been feeding collectively? What collective image has it been? And what individual personal image has it been for me? And of course, I have been feeding into images that are not supporting the Earth's destiny being beautiful and peaceful, not harmonious. Absolutely, I've been feeding into her dark image, and absolutely, I've been feeding into a limiting image of myself as well and other people. As you were touching upon, Wyatt, it's everywhere. It's saturated in everything, and it's certainly in our culture. And we can get into reasons why it's gone so deep so far in another podcast. But as of now, the science of imagery is a very beautiful and really important invitation here, everyone. There's no better time to be receiving this invitation than right now, because I don't want to go down a road that is almighty destruction and devastation. I do not want to see my beloved friends and family go into that direction. Absolutely not. No, I do not want to see a future where the water's poisoned and the air is so toxic we can barely breathe hard. No, no, not on my watch. No, I'm going to feed into a different image. But someone might say, Ariane, it's not going to make a difference. Just you feeding into that image is not going to be enough. Okay, well, what happens when you find tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of people around the world who are also ready and willing to take that invitation, or ready to answer those hard questions, who are ready to feed in a different image? What we have discovered, and I'm going to say I here more specifically, what I have discovered through the science of imagery is that when one holds a very specific image with others, it becomes so alive, so amplified, and it becomes really powerful. And just like I was saying in the beginning of this episode, when many with their thought hold a very specific collective image, it can affect the biome, the biology of all of life, far beyond our bodies. It goes right into the earth and all of her as well. It's everything.
Edian, absolutely brilliant what you're saying. And dear friends, that is exactly what we are going to be doing in this podcast, is creating a community of trust where there is a wellspring of truth and where the image before our eyes is one that we all want to walk in, and where a community of people is there to support each individual image as a reflection of the greater collective image.
We want you to know that this is a big reason why we're here. And this is what we're spearheading. This is what we stand by. And we are devoted. Wyatt and myself and the communities that stand behind us, we are devoted to the image of this planet being her immaculate, glorious, thriving expression. And by finding so many other people and communities who are ready to do the same and who already are doing this, well, it's exponential growth. It fuels incredible focus, hope, direction. It invokes and awakens an incredible joy and happiness and fulfillment. It's this incredible feeling of being so happy to be alive. It's so hard to put that into words. And someone might say, how can you feel that, Ariane, in the midst of everything that's going on? But this is exactly, this is exactly the reason why. The reason why is because we're able to reach in and through this illusion of a dying image, and we can reach for something else, something that can completely feed us in every way imaginable, can soothe us and bring us great direction.
And what Edian is saying, what I'm saying, and what the other communities behind us, with us, and all of the people holding the image are saying is not just words. From these words, from these heartfelt images, dear friends, we are taking action. We are putting our visions of happiness into practice. And that is the power of the science of imagery, to imbue within the woman and man an unshakable, undeniable, invincible spirit to create the world that they dream of. And that's what we're doing here.
We're doing it, yeah, on a most fundamental level. And then we're finding an enormous amount of people all around the world who are wanting to do the same or already are doing the same.
So we really look forward to diving into many of the intricacies of the science of imagery, applying it in one's own life, witnessing how the science of imagery is already being used by the tools of the modern world to keep things where they're at. and how we can rapidly and effectively change our communities and our cultures by individual actions that we take, and how we can live truly fulfilled lives with each other. Because deep down, we really all want the same thing.
Something that we're going to do on every episode is practice a call to action, and then we're going to invite everybody here that's listening to join us. What we're going to do, Wyatt and myself, and all of you, if you choose, is we're going to become aware of what image personally are we all feeding into? So the personal image of ourselves. So we are talking about this collective image that the world has, that many of us are feeding into. So what is the personal one of yours? If you had a living image out there, which you do, we all do, a living image out there in this thought field, there was an accumulation of all of your thoughts, who would that individual be? Would they be happy? Would they be standing tall? Would they be relaxed in their own skin? Would they be happy to be alive? Would they be afraid? What kind of being would it be? You can even close your eyes and even imagine who that living image would be. Maybe you can even feel who that living image of yourself would be. An accumulation of all of your thoughts embodied in an image form. That's something that Wyatt and I are going to be practicing until our next episode recording. And we're inviting all of you to join us and be creative, okay? Be open to engaging with this image of yourself, or rather getting information from this image of yourself in ways that perhaps you have not experienced before. So that's the call to action. And this is a phenomenal first step to take in this episode podcast series. That living image of us that we're going to be tapping into through our thought, that is speaking, acting, feeling, intending, living and breathing through us all the time. All the time. So I think it's a really good idea to get into this practice, and perhaps not even just have it a one-time thing, but to make it more of a regular thing if you're inspired to, because you might be amazed with what you find. And there's powerful personal transformation in this call to action if we really let it go there.
What a brilliant invitation, Edian, and we hope you have enjoyed this first step in the journey of discovering, applying, and witnessing how the science of imagery has the power to shape our life through collective thought. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.